Welcome to Chew the Chat podcast.
Well, listen, this is Chew the Chat podcast, and we're not specifically a music podcast. We're not specific. I mean, I've done music pretty much my whole time since I was 13 years old. Been in bands. I'm in like an electronic duo thing at the minute. But this podcast, essentially, Chew the Chat, is like just my fascination with humans and childhood and the trajectory that gets set for us and environment and how it dictates so much for us in good or bad ways. And I noticed since I've been following you and found you guys on Instagram and stuff, you're always posting really positive stuff, and I'm really intrigued to find out, how that path's kind of.
Where's all that come from?
Yeah, well, listen, for me it's weird because I'll be 40 on my next birthday, so I'm a kind of a generation behind you guys, and I was a bit young. I missed kind of the real heyday. Although I was listening, the tape cassettes and, all that stuff, and you were laden all over
as a nipper, probably, yeah.
Well, listen,
there's a lot of people like that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you took over from Michael Jackson on my wall. Slipmatt and Psy and Clarkey and Ramos and, Dougal and Vibes. My bedroom was laden. Literally, Michael Jackson came down and whatever. And
rave flyers.
Yes, and up went you guys. And I was always too young to actually get to the raves, but I was mesmerised in the artwork and the kind of
wicked.
The futuristic stuff on the artwork, and it was amazing. So welcome to Chew the Chat podcast, Slipmatt. Appreciate your time. So I want to just go back really and find out what was life like for you in the beginning. Where did the music thing come from? I have heard you say previously on other podcasts that I listened to that you were literally putting the records on the decks for your mum when you were like 18 months old.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. I'm not from a particularly musical family or anything. My mum and dad used to like music. They used to go out dancing. They were in the sort of late 50s. They were in their early 20s. And so they used to like dancing and going out, but they were never with not a musical family at all. So I don't know. It just had this fascination with records, and it happened to be records like vinyl at the time. I went through the whole tape thing. It didn't really matter what it was. The record thing was a bit special because I just wanted to start mixing it as soon as I could as well. I started mixing with reel-to-reels, and I mean back probably in the late 70s, probably we had a reel-to-reel machine and a record deck, and I used to mix the record deck with what was on the reel-to-reel. I was that sort of like into it. What can I do with these sounds? I used to record stuff in just tap something. Well, to try and make drum sound. This is when I'm really, really young, and then record that, and then play the recording, and then record that into into a microphone, while I was tapping something else or getting a guitar and playing a one note. I couldn't play guitar, but playing a one note to try and get a bass line and stuff. Just putting things together. So it's always been there's something triggered at an early age, I think, with music with me, and I just really, really felt it. I can remember sitting indoors, with headphones on as a very young boy, listening to the tracks and just being fascinated by the way that it was stereo and the different sound effects and stuff like that. Where I don't think many kids of that age would have been sort of that into it. I think they would have sort of either liked it or not.
Yeah.
But I was sort of dissecting it all from a very early age.
So did you have siblings and stuff? I know you do have a brother. Do you have how many of you was there in the house, and what was the house dynamic then as well?
Yeah, so I've got my oldest is my sister. She's actually 61 now, I think. Actually, I'm the youngest. Yeah, my brother's just turned. My oldest brother's just turned 60, and my second oldest brother he'll be 57 this year. That's making me feel old.
Well, what are you now then?
I'm the youngest. I'm 53. So I'm the youngest. Mum and Dad are still about. They live over in Spain. They're both 85. So we're quite an old family now. Yeah.
Well, so that's what really interests me is like So that dynamic in the house, are your brothers and your sister into music? Are mum and dad into music? Are they kind of playing stuff? I know they're not playing instruments, but are they got the records on and are we dancing and jiving on a Friday tea time?
But yeah, so all the same sort of thing, really. Again, not musical, but we've always enjoyed it. I think going back, my sister always wanted to be one of Pan's people on Top of the Pops. I think she actually went for an interview once as well. Sure there's a story, but she never got it. But yeah, so she was into music. She was into, like, I think, what was it, David Cassidy and things like that growing up. I don't know if she would have been too old for the Bay City Rollers and stuff like that. And then my older brother Mark, he did the whole Pink Floyd thing, Bowie. So they were all into music. And then my other brother Paul, 57-year-old, we were out clubbing together. So he was out clubbing at 18. I was 14, going on 15.
Early doors for you then.
I was tall for my age. Yeah, I'm 6'3", so, and I was tall at that age, and I used to just about get away with getting into some of the clubs.
And you'd be with your brother, so you'd have a bit of confidence being with your brother as well.
Yeah, I was out of an older crowd, and we were out clubbing every week. I mean, through our teens, we were clubbing like nearly every week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week. Back in the 80s, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
God knows how we afforded it.
Well, I mean, again, it was a different world then, and value in every way, in its financial sense and in the value that we took from things. I don't know, it seemed
a lot more simple, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seemed to mean much more back then, didn't it?
Mm.
So, a happy house, it sounds like then.
Oh, very, yeah. Very. I'd go to the point where probably when I was a lot younger, we used to, I could probably argue with my brothers or sister, but not as I grew up. We were never an arguing family. Never used to hear my mum and dad argue.
And what were they like in terms of discipline with you guys then? Were they kind of pretty loose? I mean, I've heard you say in interviews and stuff that your mum used to love hearing you making your tunes even.
They were strict in a nice way. So they used to give us a lot of freedom. I was out on my own from a very young age. I think I said on a couple of the other podcasts, I was out going up to London at 10 years old. And we used to get up to no good as well. We used to go and buy 10 fags and go get a red bus rover. And I think we got chucked out the cinema for smoking once. Couldn't get away with that now. But nothing really naughty. We had that freedom and they trusted us. Cared for us a lot, so they'd do anything for us, but not over spoiling us either.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful. I had a really sort of nice upbringing. We didn't have a lot of money. Didn't even have enough money for a skateboard. When skateboards come out, it's one of my sob stories I always pull out. Yeah, what skateboard did you have? Well, I didn't have one. I couldn't afford it, but there was a lot of love in the house. Yeah, lots and lots of love, and we still all get on very, very well as a family. There's never been any family feuds at all.
Do you know?
Nothing.
Sadly, for me, like anecdotally at least, my own experience is not that, but it seems harder and harder to come by. And like as I referred to earlier about your Instagram, like really positive, always reaffirming, little just glimmers of just positive, good energy. Families, I don't know, like I say, in my experience, there's a lot of families that I know and that I'm experiencing life with that we don't seem to have that. There's not many of us at this point that can say everything's kind of been without drama or without too much drama and kind of everyone's still in a nice place. It seems more rare than ever. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's I've done a lot of work on myself. I've always been quite a sort of happy chappy through the years. I've always been known sort of in my circles being like the placid one. Oh, mate, you're so placid though. You're such a nice sort of geezer. Well, I can lose my temper at times and I can be a tit sometimes, but I've done a lot of work on myself in the last sort of 7 or 8 years, which is why all that stuff comes out on Instagram and stuff. It's given me a real awareness about life and stuff. So not that I didn't know all of that before, but once you really start sort of digging into it and you realise it's just awareness. I can see why families fall out and stuff. I can see why people fall out.
Does it seem more miraculous?
I just say when you know, it just stares you in the face, and you just think,
obviously,
I just want to get hold of some people and say, no, why are you thinking like that?
Yeah. Do you think then, looking back on like your upbringing now, with that little bit kind of bit more present insight as well, it's even more valuable to think, fucking hell, we like you said, we value the wrong things, don't we? You didn't have a lot of money, but you had a lot of love. Simple things, like that goes a long way, doesn't it?
Life was so much more simple, wasn't it? There's a lot to be said for spoiling your kids, and I think parents these days just sitting their kids in front of the telly or giving them another toy. I see friends of mine now, and they're just toys, have another thing, and then you look in the kids' cupboard, it's just stacked up with a load of old shit, all the same old crap, just to keep them quiet. If I'm really honest, not everyone, but I see it going on, and that's very different from the old days. I make myself sound old now, and I talk about the old days. But yeah, growing up in the 70s and 80s, generally, from where I came from a working class family, we didn't generally have enough money to go and buy loads of stuff. Things were a treat. I remember as a real toddler seeing this fire engine in the shop, in this little row of shops that my mum used to go to. I think it was before I went to school, and I remember looking at it every day, thinking, I really want that fire engine. And looking back, it's probably worth £2 or £3. And nowadays you could just go, oh yeah, there you go, buy one for your child every day.
Yeah.
But that was special. Eventually, after like quite a few weeks, she bought it for me, and it was special. I made a point similarly to my little boy the other day. Halloween recently, wasn't it? I've got 3 little ones, and I said a similar thing. It was like when I can remember being at my granddad's down in Bracknell, down south, and we didn't. I mean, again, I'm 40, so I was like 80s kid. And I had to make my outfit for Halloween, bin bags and bits of paper and making sellotaping bits of, skulls and God knows what I'd drawn on paper onto my bin bag. And then now, you go in Asda and there's every fucking amazing kind of werewolf or skeleton or whatever the fuck, brilliant, amazing outfits for like $7.99. And there's something in that abundance, isn't there? It seems like now that like we lose the meaning that like whatever I did when my granddad sat down and made that outfit for an afternoon, that whole bit of time when my granddad bonded and stuff. So there's different ways of looking at it, and that you can look at it as like, aren't we fucking lucky now that you can just go in the shop and get something so cheap? So that's one way of looking at it. Or like you just explained, and it means a lot more actually, is that you can just go and buy it, but you've lost all that bonding time with your granddad, which is actually that's the special sauce in life. That's the special bit. Everything about humans is about connecting. We get everything we've got comes from someone, or is made by someone, or something, or we get it from someone, and so everything is all about connections. Once you lose that connection, that real sort of connection, I think you lose a big chunk of the happiness.
No, I totally agree. And like I say, your Instagram is always reaffirming that, and I love that. I get nice little perks when I see that stuff.
But one of the reasons I do that is not to sort of try and tell everyone what this is how you should do it, this is how you should think. But it's actually good for yourself to put stuff like that out there. So I put stuff out pretty much every day. And it actually helps me because it's almost like, like a mantra, like, what do you call it? Like affirmations. If I'm looking at positive stuff every day, it's doing me good. And I suppose, people don't have to look at my Instagram, but if they do, and I get a lot of, surprising actually, I get quite a few people sort of comment and saying, and sort of saying, I love what you're doing with that. It's like, actually gets more attention than my music a lot of the time.
Well, yeah, but... But hey, listen, we'll get to that obviously because I can't wait to dig into that. But just quickly, I mean, your music was reflective, as you mentioned. You're a happy chappy amongst your mates and in your circles. I mean, your music was always that as well. It was always uplifting, always euphoric and like punching up. I always felt like, but we'll get to that. So when you are living in the family home, as you paint the picture, you don't have a lot, but what you've got means a lot. you know, and you're getting to sort of your adolescence, I guess, or your young teenager years. At what point do you really start thinking and getting serious about music, and what's the tipping point? And do mum and dad kind of recognise it and give you a shove and help you out? Or here's a couple of quid towards you, whatever it is you want, or, you know, are you getting told off for making too much noise?
I always got told off for making too much noise. Yeah, I was into Ragga and reggae from about 12, 13. So all my music from that age, from about 1980 onwards, was just all heavy bass line. I used to be getting told to turn it down all the time. Yeah, but no, it's pretty much all myself that's done it. To be honest with you, I've always had full support from everyone. Mum, dad, and my sister, and my brothers, and all family have always been extremely supportive. But yeah, it just went from one thing to another. So it went from playing records constantly, just being fascinated with music. Then I started to go to a few concerts and stuff. Got bang into reggae music, and then started fiddling about with, I was saying about bashing things and making my own sounds. I got myself an echo chamber because I wanted to make sounds and then make it echo like Rodigan used to do on Capital Radio with all these jingles and stuff. And then I suppose from there, getting into the whole dance music thing, and just wanting to mix tunes together. I think from sort of mid-teenage years, just trying to do. So I've still got old tapes somewhere from when I was about 14, 15, mixing reel to reels together and stuff. It's a bit messy, but it was a start. It was a start of something, yeah. And I think everyone's mixing was probably messy back in, I don't know, what would that have been, 1982 or something, you know. But yeah. So I bought me decks myself out of my own money, my first set of decks, and all the bits and pieces, and from going clubbing and then buying the tunes every day and getting me decks, and then just sort of gradually got into it myself. My mum and dad pretty much watched what I was doing all the way through and supported me. But there was no big step up the ladder. My biggest break was through my brother Paul, who started rain dance in '89. But that was sort of off the back of what I was doing, because we were both at home, and I was bringing all these tunes home and mixing and stuff. And then the rave scene exploded. He was a bit of an entrepreneur, and thought, oh, right, okay, I'm sort of surrounded by all this rave stuff. Let's put a rave on.
So you did a pirate radio show as well, didn't you?
We had me, Lime, and a few of my mates. We started our own pirate station called Raw FM back in. And
Lime, you go to school with Lime, didn't you?
We was at school together, yeah. We was at senior school, yeah.
Yeah.
So did you two kind of obviously fed each other with like, let's do this, let's do that, let's try this, let's try that?
Yeah, we were the two kids in the class that were really into the music thing and the dance side of music. John was more into he was into the futuristic side of things, like your Depeche Mode and Human League and all that when that was around. And as that sort of tailed off, he then got into the electro sort of side of things, which I sort of did through being probably more into sort of reggae and soul music as well, and then from soul into that electro sound. And then we sort of joined up with our sort of musical tastes. We was in the same class, and then we used to take tapes into school and play to each other and stuff, and we just sort of bonded through music, really, yeah.
And how was it when you how old would you have been then when you set up Raw? How old were you then?
That would have been 21. That would have been 88, 89, I think. I was 21 then, yeah. Which actually sounds quite old, doesn't it, really, for starting out? But yeah, so...
What was the logistics like then, putting that together? What did you have to learn? Was it all CB stuff and that? How did it all work?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was basically, there was 6 of us. Just mates. It wasn't a business or anything like that. We were just out. We used to go up Camden Palace raving, places like that. Everyone was, the whole group of us were into the music stuff, into DJing, and we just thought, right, okay, what should we do? Let's start a pirate radio station. The two of my mates were working for, I think it was Tower Hamlets, or the council. I think it was Tower Hamlets, but they were doing like engineering work and locksmith work for the council, so they knew all the different squats in and around the area. So they managed to they sussed out what one to go to, and we just broke into this squat and then sealed it up, and then bosh, that was our station. That was the only way to run it back in the day.
Wow, that's exciting, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, what an experience! Yeah, it's mad. Yeah, we got rumbled there by the DTI. I lost my first set of decks there as well.
Oh, what, gone?
Bit of a shame. Yeah, we was on the 18th floor. We had the aerial stuck out the balcony. It was just there for everyone to see. So naive. So we got done, and then we just moved up 2 floors up to the 20th floor, same block, and we just sealed it up. There's like no way anyone was getting in there at all. We put egg boxes all over the walls and all this insulation stuff. We had the cables going through the soil pipe and up onto the roof, which had to get 2 ladders to get up there. So the DTR would never have wanted to get right up to the top. And then we lasted there for well over a year, I think.
Really? And so,
well over a year, yeah.
Would that have been like a bit of a hub for you lads, full stop then? Would you be in there for days at a time and that, and just...
Yeah, so we'd just go up at weekends. We'd go up on a Friday, and then, you know, sort of, we only lived down the road anyway. It was only from sort of Loughton, Buckersteel area. The studio at the station was in Hackney Marshes. It was only like a 15-minute drive. We'd be backwards and forwards all weekend, just up there smoking puff and just sort of chilling, playing music. And then we had a double auto reverse cassette deck. We used to leave that on all week, get a couple of tapes and leave it on all week, and actually keep it broadcasting. So we'd know if it had gone off, there was something going on. But I don't think that ever happened. And sometimes if it was passing, we'd pop in and change the tapes over or something.
Do you remember the first time you broadcast then? And how did you know if people were listening and who was listening? And did you have a phone line? How did all that work?
I can remember bits of it. I can sort of remember being in there. It's a long time ago. But yeah, we had a pager, I think it was, at the time. I can't even remember it properly. It wouldn't have been a bleeper. It would have been a pager. So we just had messages coming through. Bleeper was where you actually had to go to the phone box, wasn't it? So long ago. But so yeah. So no, we had a pager, which used to get messages through on that. Yeah, we had phones and that. We did have phones at the time, but you wouldn't. I don't think anyone would have phoned you up on a mobile back in '89. Would have cost you an arm and a leg.
So how would you have been putting it out there? Would you have been flyering it and stuff like that? Would you just been how would you put it out?
We weren't really that bothered. I think we probably put a few flyers in some of the local record shops and stuff. We had some hats made up and bits and pieces. We did have some flyers done actually. I think we put a few out just at some of the gigs and that, but we weren't out there sort of doing a mass promotion. It wasn't a business, so it was just a hobby, you know. And we had a good sort of good group of regular listeners.
Oh, wicked! And do you reckon you learned much from that? Then was that an experience where you took stuff away from?
Yeah, massive. Absolutely massive. It's just the experience anyway. Just for living through that, you know, that's never going to happen again. Not like that.
Yeah.
Never ever. That whole 89 or even 88 to sort of 92 thing is just so unique.
Mm.
It's so unique. But yeah, I suppose I learned a lot about it, a lot from it, should I say? And then when Rain Dance sort of got going, sort of through 1991. Must have been through 1990. I started getting gigs on the Friday and Saturdays as well. So I'd go up there for a couple of hours, do a set, and then I'd be off up the country somewhere.
Wow. So the transition then from pirate radio, getting your deck stolen, rebooting yourself, then your brother setting up the Rain Dance situation alongside you, I guess, in a way. So what's the point where it turns and, you know, you get a phone call or something's happening, so, you know, your music, people are, you know, you're going to get around to doing singles and signing stuff. How does that come about?
Yeah, so we did our first tune in '89, which was an acid thing. That went really well. That was all exciting. We had to do a press shot and stuff, and that, you know, even just doing that, from that, you know, from where we come from and for that era was like, oh wow, we're doing like photos of us, really. And so we did that. We actually got a couple of Adidas tracksuits and trainers set ups for nothing as well. It was sort of like sponsorship. It was pretty cool. So we did that. That track came out. It did okay. Then we decided we got burnt with it, actually. We never got paid from the label, which is pretty much standard, I think, for your first tune. Yeah. So we decided to start our own label, which was awesome, and we made the Noise Bassquake, which is our first release, on there. So then we had to go and see the distributor and set everything up. Still all very sort of underground and stuff, but all really interesting and really good looking back at it, that we'd gone through that experience doing the whole thing ourselves. That did really well. We sold about 3,500 copies, which for our own first track on our own label, that's pretty good, really. You know, probably making about £1 a go on each track, on each sale. So it's really good money at the time.
Fucking amazing. And also,
yeah,
the stages, the gears you're going through from the pirate radio station to then, you know, obviously you're gigging, you're playing out, you're doing all that stuff, you're building up your experience anyway. But then I'm interested to know which one of you out of the crew then is the one who's kind of like leading, like, right, we need to start a label, right? I'll speak to him, I'll ring the distributors, I'll get the meeting sorted. Which one of you is kind of leading it down like that?
I think both of us, really. I was always the busier DJ, purely because I wanted it more than John did. John was he's got a totally different mindset to me when it comes to work and how we sort of, where we put our energy. But we were both very much into the whole making the music thing and the label side of things, and that was both of us down the middle. We were, you know, both very, very motivated to do that. Yeah,
and confident enough to do it, because going into meetings like that or going to see distributors and stuff, and you know, when you're a young lad and just sort of getting.
Yeah, it was good. It was exciting. I mean, we cut the record in JTS, which was at its first place, which was just on top of a corner shop in Hackney. So that was just a proper old reggae sort of dub cutting gaff. So even that was, that was a bit of me. I was into the reggae thing and all that. And it wasn't really nerve wracking. It was just experience. It was great. But the whole DJing thing, it's like John would never have done as much DJing as me. I was up and down the country for years and years and years, really putting a lot of effort into it.
And did you have booking agent and stuff at that point, Matt? Or were you just sort of, how were you working it?
Not at that point, no. No.
How are you getting on show?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I got most of my work really came through rain dance, through doing rain dance. So it was such a big thing for London for those couple of years. They were getting 3,000 to 5,000 people there. I can't even remember how regular it was, but at least 5 or 6 times a year, and there were big parties. So all the other big promoters were looking at it, and I sort of stuck out, I suppose. As sort of one of the main DJs, from being sort of fairly unknown. I suppose it helped having a couple of tracks out before, but I just got noticed, I suppose. And then the bookings started coming in. I remember getting booked for Colchester, and then kept going back there. I got booked to play in Leicester, which was one of the first out of London ones, and then kept getting booked there. And then everywhere I got booked out of London, they sort of took me back. And it just spread out, and got more and more and more. And I ended up, by 1991, I was all over the place.
Wow, yeah. And is there a day that you remember, or is there a poignant time that you remember where you think, fucking hell, it's happening. I'm fucking paying my bills, doing the music, and we're on track here to do what I wanted to do. That must have been...
It's weird. I've been asked that quite a few times. Was there a plan and stuff? And when did you realise? It's like, no, there was never a plan. It just... did just sort of happen off the back of my sort of motivation as well. It's something that I always wanted to do, being a DJ, so I naturally pushed myself to do it. But I don't know, looking back, I suppose there would have been a few times, probably some of the rain dances where all of a sudden I'm playing in front of thousands of people, and and they're going off, absolutely going off. And it's like, wow, this is brilliant. I hope this carries on for a while.
Yeah.
The main point where we knew it was getting serious was when we brought out DJs Take Control. So that flew out on a white label in summer '91, and then the phone started ringing from the labels, and it was like, all right, okay, so this is getting serious now. John had gone off to Ibiza with all the lads from the radio station. They were out playing for, I think they were playing for Black and White, and a few parties out there. They played at Summum. I think one of them played at Space and that as well. They got a few gigs and just went out and got fucking absolutely nutted, as people did back in the day over there. And I was still working. I was apprentice electrician, so I kept John's phone. He had a brick phone, the old Motorola brick. I took that into work with me every day because we were getting phone calls from labels and stuff. And then my apprenticeship finished, I think it was June. Just pretty much the week my apprenticeship finished, we was like making a decision of what label to go with. And we went with XL Recordings, and then a couple of months later we were on Top of the Pops.
Amazing. That's fucking mad. Yeah, I read that you were doing electrician work, at the time, and then that turning point halfway through '91, you're like fucking living in must be like an upside down dream.
Mad, yeah, and I could look back a few years before that and think, every Thursday we'd put the kettle on for 7:30 and go and sit and watch Top of the Pops with the family. And there I am, 1991, old Matthew, he's fucking on there himself.
Yeah, that is...
Yeah, it's mad, yeah.
What was that like then, rocking up to Top of the Pops the first time?
Yeah, wicked, brilliant, absolutely brilliant experience. Just meeting all the other pop stars and stuff. Just seeing them, just seeing the whole thing, being involved with the whole thing. Yeah, it was great. It was really, really, really good. Real eye opener.
And you did that a couple of times, Top of the Pops, didn't you? How many times were you on there?
We did it in October with DJs Take Control, and then when Ragga Tip come out, we did it another couple of times.
Yeah, and Ragga Tip was enormous, wasn't it?
Yeah, huge, yeah. Yeah, we did that twice. We did Dance Energy a couple of times as well with Normski up in Manchester. That was good fun. And then numerous other sort of radio interviews and bits and pieces and stuff. By that time, when we were doing the SL2 stuff and did the Top of the Pops, we then got a booking agent for the SL2 shows and that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you're on the gravy train, aren't you, I guess? Does it feel like that?
Never really about the money, to be honest with you, but it felt all of a sudden it felt sort of serious and
that's kind of what I mean is you're
professional.
You've arrived at the party. You're playing to the big show.
Yeah, we still didn't think it was going to last forever, which I suppose that side of things didn't. But then as that sort of progressed and we went into '93 and stuff, then the DJing probably took off even more, really, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, you're up and down the country, you're playing everywhere. My bedroom was fucking laced. There wasn't a dot of wallpaper left, just flyers everywhere. And I was too young to get to these events, although I was probably brave enough to try towards the end. So I'd have been, when I started really, like I say, when all the posters of previous pop bands and whatever came down and all the rave stuff went up, it would have been, for me, probably about 95, 96. And then by 97, I did start going out. But I always loved the artwork from places like Dreamscape, Helter Skelter, Club Kinetic, all these places. So you've played fucking everywhere because you were one of the most, your name was on everything. So what were the better nights that you remember for music? What were the better nights you remembered for the party? What were the, which ones did you really enjoy for different reasons?
Yeah, there's so many. It's so many. And actually, looking back, there was still even in '92, which is sort of meant to be the real sort of heyday sort of year on it. But even that, there was still a few parties that were a bit shit and a bit empty and stuff. I think there was so many raves going on around that time. Probably Fantasia. I mean, all the rain dances were good for me because it was part of my family and stuff anyway as well. So they were sort of close to my heart. Fantasia was pretty cool. Things like Little Coat House always sticks out. Excuse me, which was end of '92. Kinetic was always a good one. I was up there like every other week for a while. There was Milwaukee's in Bedford, and then there was so many. I'll probably forget loads, but then obviously the Dreamscapes, the Helter Skelters, the United Dance, World Dance was always great. Fusion. I'm sort of picking out all the big ones, but they
Such a.
What about the Pleasure
Mad,
Dome
mad
up here,
era.
Skegness, Pleasure Dome?
Pleasure Dome. I think I was up there in '92. Actually, yeah, I think first time I went out there was '92, and then Howden for Destruction. That was probably '93, '94. That might be '92 as well. Actually, Destruction. I played for Stuart for years.
And did you?
Yeah, there's tons. Like you said, I did actually play everywhere.
Fucking everywhere, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always look at the flyers.
Most people were sick of me.
Mesmerising to just see all these names and just everywhere. And the artwork, like I say, I was younger, and the artwork was always kind of this futuristic.
Pez was the one, and then Junior Tomlin as well.
Right.
Pez and Junior Tomlin, yeah. My brother did some parties called Peace Fest as well. He talked about artwork. Peace Fest, that was another good one. They had a great flyer as well. Just a picture of a bloke with a bald head. And it was pretty mad.
And what about, like, famously, all the tape packs you used to get, especially Dreamscape, you get like 12 tapes in a pack. Did you ever get sent them, given them or anything? Did you ever have them, or were you just in the gig, play the gig, move on?
No, they used to hide them from us. No, they didn't. So, in fact, some of the promoters did actually used to hide them. They used to sort of like, sort of not mention them. And then some of the promoters used to sort us out a couple of quid as well now and again. Tape packs were brilliant though. Whether we got paid for them or not, for us as a DJ at the time, it was the best promotion in the world. And going back thinking, like, why are some of these DJs moaning about it? Why are they moaning about, oh, you put a tape pack out of me? It's like, it's the best promotion ever. And actually, as the years have gone on, even now, people are still messaging all the time. I used to listen to your tapes, or I've just got this tape. I've been listening to this tape. This is my favourite. I've been listening to it for years. It's like, well, that's amazing. It's magic.
And especially now, when you think the internet, I mean, really, it was doing what the internet does now, isn't it? Which is like putting the music out there. It's accessible.
Yeah.
People are getting it. And, then they're coming to the shows and they're listening and sharing and all the rest of it. They were magic, them tapes. I used to love swapping them with my mates. You'd hammer them. You'd try and copy them onto an old blank, whatever it was, CF90 or whatever. Then you'd be swapping his pack for this pack. And, God, yeah, I turned the lights off in my bedroom with my mates around. I was like 14, 13, just fucking, yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
I get a lot of stories and messages from people saying that they were too young. Pretty much what you're saying. They were too young to go out, but they used to think their older brothers or older sisters tapes or get to listen to them. Yeah.
So what was your kind of mantra then for going out? Were you? I imagine you would have gone in spells of like partying, and you seem like you're pretty cerebral with the music. So would you be off your head when you were playing, or would you be strictly like, no, a party later, or did you party at all, or how did it work for you?
I was always a party later person, really. Yeah, I didn't do anything that naughty till the second half of the 90s.
Really?
It's quite exactly. Quite a lot of people were like, really? What, 90, 91, 92? I was like, no, never done anything at all. I just didn't really want to get involved. I used to have a drink, especially if I was staying out somewhere and we was going back to a hotel, I'd have a skinful and we'd have a right old laugh. I wasn't a boring sod by any means, but just was never into that. I mean, thing is, by the time I got into DJing around the country, I was driving myself as well, and I always wanted to do that. I never wanted a driver. I don't know. I just sort of wanted to be in control of it. So, I'd have one beer at the most if I was driving, and nothing else like that at all. It did change a bit for a little while.
You're pretty disciplined with it then, and focused.
I can be, yeah. I can be.
So do you remember the first time? I mean, because what I'm thinking about now is I'm thinking about the effects. I mean, you love music, so loving music the way you do, you're mesmerised since being 18-month old.
I'm even on the 0 beer now.
Do you remember listening to music for the first time, like off your head? And sort of, did it make any sense when you were looking back at all them people who were off their head and just in that mental place of euphoria and connection?
It did actually. It did to an extent, yeah. First time I ever done a pill was in Ibiza in, I think it was 96. I think I was out with Brisk and False and Styles and Seduction, I think, and all them lot. And yeah, and it didn't change anything with the music for me, but it did sort of give me an idea of why people were doing what they were doing. Most definitely, yeah. I remember doing my first trip as well, and that was just like, wow.
Wow, what, in a club?
With the music? No, not in a club. No. We was actually in a car. I wasn't driving. I wasn't the driver, but I was in a car. And we're doing this first trip, and it was a long old journey, and I'm just thinking, oh, this sounds so good. And I remember coming out. It was my car that the geezer was driving. And then I remember coming out in the morning and getting in the car, and the stereo was turned right up. It was distorted to fuck. Thinking, we was listening to that all the way home, and it was like that, and it was just sounding the nuts. So yeah, that was. I haven't done loads of that stuff either, but I'm glad that I tried it.
For lots of us, you know, we do that first pill and we're partying, and for, you know, I'm talking from the people the other side of the decks. You know, when we get into it and it's fucking everything's just. Everyone, we're just off our heads the whole time. You've managed to say, now, you know, I'm staying pretty level here and not got caught up in that, which is fucking commendable.
Yeah, it was great. That time in Ibiza was great, and I can remember it now, and I can remember thinking, I remember still dancing at the airport to no music and stuff like that. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I was like, your typical raver. Goes back to thinking about that girl and the geezer outside Fantasia, you know, the video that went viral.
Yeah,
but they're just dancing outside the gates.
And the music's long gone, yeah.
But you know, and I've had my moments through the years as well. People who know me will know. I do like to party. But there is that sensible side of me that kicks in and says, nah, that's enough. I've got myself in all sorts of trouble before with booze and drugs and all sorts, smashing hotels up and all that. So I'm definitely no saint. But when it comes to the DJing and the business side of it, that always comes first. Right,
really smart. When you'd had obviously on a Ragga tip, and you know your chart success in SL2, it was all kicking off, and you guys were out playing. Were you starting to get the groupie thing happening? Were you coming out of DJ sets at Pleasure Dome, wherever it is, Kinetic, and like people fucking like, there's Slipmatt, and they want to hook up with you, they want to come party where you are? Are you starting to feel that kind of?
Oh yeah.
And what does that do to your head? I imagine it must be mad, but it sounds like you're pretty balanced and kept it in check.
Yeah, no, I really, really appreciate when people are like that. It can actually be a little bit problematic when you've really got to get to another gig, and when you really, really don't want to be sort of too harsh on people, which I don't like to be. It can be a bit awkward. But yeah. No, as a DJ, you get that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes you fucking ages. It used to take ages just to get to the decks. As soon as you get recognised, that's it. Everyone wants to, and even just as much in later years as well. Everyone wants to shake your hand. Everyone wants a photo. That takes even longer. You know, even now, not right this moment, but even sort of in recent years, pre-pandemic. But yeah. Going to, and it's like photo. So you know, but I do appreciate it. It's lovely. It's really, really nice. I go up to people and ask them for photos. So I get it. I totally get it.
Would you sometimes find yourself right? Oh, we're all going back to fucking whoever's place, wherever you are, and like being back at house parties or back at places people are sessioning. And people kind of like, fucking hell, it's Slipmatt, and fucking in your ear and like, you know, asking you shit, and it must have been mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, I've been back to a few parties. of always getting asked to go back. Excuse me. And even now, you know, I get messages on Facebook. Oh, right, you going so-and-so? Pop in for a cup of tea. So, really?
Yeah.
But that's not. Yeah, same again though. That's actually quite nice because it shows that people feel a little bit of sort of closeness as well.
Yeah, and it means something.
No,
it means a lot because, again, coming back to that drug euphoria state that so many of them people are in when, you know, when they've got rid of their work week and they've bought their ticket and they've got their little bag and their friends and they've literally, you know, like in the Human Traffic film that depicts it really well from our generation, you know, like we're out and we're free for the weekend. And the music, especially when you went into the more happy hardcore side of things, that euphoria, that collective energy was just, and especially because, like you say, the early 90s, that period when rave just took over like that, it's once in a lifetime, you know, I've heard you talk about this as well with the music itself, like why did jungle make it in so many different ways, and maybe happy hardcore and hardcore didn't make it in the public's eyes as much. There's something about that even that distills that period, that chapter is even more special for me because it's of its time in such a special way, and those kids, those people in front of you on those drugs in that moment, you are God. You are literally fucking God, and you're dropping positive, uplifting. Like, people are soaring. So I can imagine their energy for you being, like you say, it, you know.
Yeah, we put as a DJ, we probably didn't realise that quite as much at the time. Probably the way you're describing it there, we were just right. Okay, yeah, right. It sort of seemed like they're having it. Got this one.
Which is beautiful though as well.
Yeah.
That is, you know, it might be a bit overawing otherwise, but so when you were out playing, obviously I can remember one of my favourite tapes I used to have on my paper round. It was a Slipmatt and Psy. I can't remember what it was from, but it was fucking amazing. You were obviously SL2 with John with Lime. So over the years when you started to do more and more stuff with other guys, who would you be with a lot and who would you enjoy being out playing with and travelling about with and doing gigs with?
I've always pretty much been sort of a bit of a loner really, but I suppose the circles sort of changed. Just trying to think. I suppose the happy hardcore thing, the circles changed. So back doing Rain Dance, it was actually I remember we've been with Ray Keith and LTJ Booker and back in like probably in the 91 era and that group, and then when the happy hardcore thing sort of really started evolving, I then sort of had two different sort of groups of DJs. I suppose I was still playing jungle and stuff as well. But then that happy hardcore thing would have been Dougal Vibes, Seduction, Psy, Vinyl Groover, Brisk, all those sort of names. Hixie come along about a year later. Ramos and Supreme, did I say them? So there was that sort of group, that sort of posse. But I was sort of in the middle a bit as well because I used to play a bit of everything. So I'd been around a bit longer than you Dougal and Vibes and stuff. I'd been around right from the beginning, so I had a good sort of connection with the whole of the rave scene. Whereas someone like you Dougal and Vibes sort of come in sort of 92, 93, I think. So I'm not. They just didn't experience that 89 sort of thing with all the other names like your Groove Riders and Fabios and stuff as well, I suppose. Maybe that made a difference, I don't know.
Well, it starts to create those subgenres though, doesn't it? Like you say, happy hardcore starts to become what it is.
Well, exactly, yeah.
You know, and everybody starts to fit in that clique, and I think that's a big part of your longevity is the fact that you are literally known as the godfather of hardcore, you're the pioneer of, and you've said it even before we're chatting about the rave period, you're into the reggae, you're into all these types of music, and that you hear that come through, and I think that gives you that ability to be so eclectic as well, doesn't it? And if you're there at the start of something, you've kind of got that ticket, I think.
Well, I've had quite an eclectic career actually, music wise. I don't know, probably more than people would think. I've played pretty much everything from real housey stuff to excuse excuse me, to the bleeps and bass and the breakbeat, 92 hardcore, and then jungle, dark side, happy hardcore, back to house, trance, hard house, the whole fucking lot really. Breaks. We pretty much sort of started the whole rave breaks sort of thing for a couple of years. And now I'm back playing more tech house than anything. Yeah, it's all got like an old school influence in it, and it's getting more and more. Actually, everyone keeps sending me house tracks that are sort of basically old school remakes, which is great. It's good.
Yeah. So when you were moving through those early years, and some of those DJs you mentioned, would you lads ever be in a place where you'd be like, right, we're having it tonight, and a load of you would get together and have like a mad lost event after the fact, or would you all sort of go off on your separate ways?
Yeah, this time, I mean, especially if we were out at hotels and stuff. So we'd done a few trips to like Canada and Ibiza and places like that, where we've all sort of been together and then partied pretty hard at times. Yeah,
can imagine. Yeah.
And there's been times over the years where I've hooked up with people like LSD and Kenny Kane and people like that, and we've ended up back at people's houses till the next night and stuff.
Fun times.
Bit of an after party. Yeah, I do that a lot less these days. I don't really do many after parties at the moment.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's the old
never say never.
Never say never, but yeah, it all changes, doesn't it? The body ages and everything changes.
Your body aches. Yeah,
it takes a bit of time to recover, doesn't it? So, as the years are flying by, then, and the genres are changing, and everything's adapting. As you've mentioned, you've got the ability to kind of sort of transition between things without really any question. You seem to sort of earn your stripes in that way. As I did get old enough to start clubbing, it started to become much more trancey. So what did you think when things were changing, and what made you sort of move on from happy hardcore, and what was it, just a case of you always onto something new, or what was the vibe?
I stuck with the hardcore till it was about 1999, and I remember getting to the point where I was thinking I hadn't actually started playing any new tunes for about a year. Must have been a good year, and I just thought, do you know what? Wasn't really feeling anything that was coming out. That was a bit of a sign to me. I didn't give up on it, and I would never just give up that easy. But it was just getting a bit stale. I suppose it, probably at the time, thought it's not really good for my career, really, if I'm just playing the same old tunes over and over and not actually enjoying it as much as well. But at the same time, I was playing a lot of house again from sort of 94, 95 onwards. My brother had started the Aquarium in London, which was a big house club. So I get to play down there quite a bit, and then from 96 onwards, I was going to Ibiza from 94, but from 96 onwards I started playing a thing called Sundance in Ibiza, which was an 1830s thing actually, but wasn't commercial. Well, that wasn't commercial. It was underground music. It was like 3,000 people at what's known as the Zoo, Benamusa Park, and I started doing that a couple of times a year, and then from it's 96, maybe 97, I then started to go to Ibiza a lot more, backwards and forwards, and then to Mallorca, and then I started doing Corfu. I think I probably did Corfu in 96 as well. But pretty much playing house with a bit of old school mixed in, just because of who I was, sort of thing. Just to sort of bring it, I think they'd actually booked me to do a bit of both, sort of thing, So I was playing house from mid 90s again, on top of everything else. So sort of not doing so much of the hardcore stuff just meant that I'd concentrate a bit more on the house, still playing sort of proper old school sets. By proper, I just mean sort of 90, 91, 92 sort of stuff, and 89 stuff. And then by 99 as well, the whole trance thing was huge. I was playing a ton of trance stuff as well.
And did you like trance when it came around? You start hearing it. Are you thinking, I'm vibing this, or what's happening? Yeah.
Yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. That euphoria. It still had what happy hardcore had for me in a way, where it's uplifting and so euphoric, but it started to just smoothing off a little bit. You know, that's how it felt to me.
Quality. It was quality music. Yeah. Really good. In fact, going back to it now, it all feels a little bit too fast for me now. But yeah, no, the trance era was great, and the same thing is pretty similar. What happened with that to what happened with the rave thing at the end of '92. That sort of ended up turning a bit too commercial and sort of blew itself out. Same thing happened with the trance. Even more with the trance. I just remember, must have been around 2002, I think, and it just went cheesy. Just, I don't know if it was the big labels or something happened, and every sort of decent trance tune ended up with a real cheesy vocal over the top of it. Right, it felt like just to try and make it commercial.
Get it in the chart. Yeah,
it just ruined the vibe. Yeah.
Matt, then would you notice when you've gone from playing like a hardcore set, like you say, 92 style, to that crowd, and then go into a housey crowd in Ibiza, could you feel the difference in the crowd, the vibes of the crowd, the expectations of crowds? Were you aware of that at the time?
I suppose so, yeah. I'd say one thing with the old school is, which I've been sort of fortunate, I suppose, is that pretty much whenever you play certain tunes from that 90, 91, 92 era, they nearly always work. So I've always had that in sort of, in my back pocket sort of thing to pull out whenever I want and whenever I need to. Some of my favourite sets in Ibiza were around 2002. I was doing, I think it's 2002 or 2003. I think it's 2002, and I did, in fact, probably from 2000, I had residencies in Ibiza as well. But this one particular year, we did nightlife at the bottom of the West End every Wednesday. I'd fly backwards and forwards every Wednesday and do like a 5-hour set, sometimes more. Back in that, you could get away with loads over there back in them days. So sometimes we used to go till 7, and it was packed pretty much all night. I just play everything. Start with real housey stuff, and then do like an hour or so of old school. Then go into sort of about hard house, but harder sort of house, and then into trance, back into the rave, sort of faster rave stuff, and then finish off with a bit of drum and bass at the end, a bit of jungle and stuff at the end.
Yeah,
they were brilliant, and everyone seemed to enjoy it, the whole sort of journey. That's great. That's
freedom for you as well, in terms of being able to guide a crowd and just take it where you want to take it, and just having all that freedom.
Brilliant, yeah. Oh, it's great. Some of the best nights for me they were there.
I think I had my first year of going out there was 2001 was my first jaunt out there, and I can remember getting off the plane, and like I say, I'd had a bedroom full of flyers and listening to music when I was way too young, from like 95 onwards. And I can remember landing in Ibiza and smelling the smell, and it was like, I don't know, it was like I would imagine if I ever go to America, to New York, or whatever, like being in a film. It's like I'd heard so much, this White Isle, this magic place for music and experience, and just like the epicenter, the mecca of like a mad dance music haven. And I ended up going to space. We landed at like I don't even remember now, but it was a typical Brit holiday. I ended up going straight to space.
Yep. Done it loads of times, yeah.
I had no shirt on. They took me straight to the little kind of merch bit. I had to buy something to wear to go in there. And then I was like, and it was obviously back then the terrace, it was all in full flow, and it was like, fucking hell, this is magic. So I know you played at Space.
For your first trip, though, straight to Space on the airport. That's brilliant.
Well, we did West End, did all that, and then it was like, right, Space, off we go. Yeah. And I met Pete Goodin, actually. I met Pete Goodin outside.
I know Pete.
Yeah, he was lovely. He was really nice, because obviously, like I say, I was a young, at that point, like English, just proper holiday mode English lad, excited to be there. Yeah. But Space, yeah, that affected me. It was. I'd heard a lot about it, and it was magical. And I know you played there. What was your experience, and what in Ibiza did stand out club wise for you?
Yeah, but I've played Space a few times actually. I did it. I had one really mad one actually. We were talking about drugs earlier, but one of my biggest drug experiences whilst DJing was someone actually spiked me up before I went on. It was Alex P's birthday. It's probably around that same time actually, probably around 2001, I reckon. And yeah, because I was still playing vinyl as well, so I reckon it's probably around that time. Yeah, and someone that I knew had given me these shots before I went on, and she told me after that she was sticking a pill in each shot before she'd given it to me, and I must have done about 3 of them, and then got on the decks, and after about 20 minutes, my jaw was going. All I can remember was looking, and I had 3 of my mates. One of them was a promoter, and another 2 sort of mates looking up at me and smiling. And I can remember actually thinking, "Oh fuck, I'm fucking off my tits," and then I don't really remember much after that. And I must have played at least another 45 minutes after that. I don't actually really remember. But then I got told after that it was one of the best sets I did that summer.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you have like a meltdown at the point when all the buttons are merging into one and everything just looks like one fucking, where you think, oh fuck, or you must have just kept going and just...
Don't even remember, yeah. Just kept going, yeah. Yeah, just in my own world, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, you can get in a state with all sorts of different bits and pieces that you can do, and you got no chance at all. But I suppose I was just sort of in it. I don't know. Yeah, that's one of the very few times that's happened to me. It's a bit dodgy. It's packed on the terrace as well. What a thing to do to you, mate.
How did you tackle that after?
But I'm glad I can look. I'm glad I can look back and laugh about it anyway. But no, I got away with it. If I'd made a complete fool of myself and messed up the set, I would have had the right hump.
Yeah, of course.
But I got away with it, so it's just a story to keep there. So that's cool.
And what about other clubs then? Was there standout places, that you loved going to for the vibes, for the crowds, for the promoters, just for the setup?
In Ibiza? Or just Ibiza? I've always liked Eden. Eden's always been good. I've had a residency there for a couple of years with Tonic. Always flying backwards and forwards. There's Paradise. I've played there tons and tons of times. We do our own events there now as well.
That was one of the prettiest clubs for me.
Yeah.
I love it in there, all the white and the pillars and everything.
Great, really, really nice. Yeah, Summum, which is round the bay, which has always been a bit of a favourite. I've had some wicked nights in there. It's a lot smaller, but it's just got a really, really good vibe. Other than that, they're sort of the main ones I've played, and Space as well. Did Sankey's a few times. It's okay. I'm much more of a San Antonio person, really. I've still got a lot of friends out there and stuff. Well, I do an event there now as well.
Right.
We do our event called Old School Ibiza, which we've done for a couple of years. We was meant to do it this year, but unfortunately we've had to move it to next year, which has been a bit painful, but looking good for next year, I think. Luckily, I went over in January and stayed with friends. It would have been the first year that I hadn't been for probably 26 years.
Wow, fucking hell. Yeah, so you've got a real affinity with the place then. Yeah, I've been there a couple hundred times at least. Yeah, that first time I went in 2001, we had a 2-week holiday. And to tell you what, it was pivotal with my friendship group at the time. We were at that age. What would I have been? I'd have been 20. No, I'd have been 19. 19, 20, 2001. No, I'd have been 20. And there's about 15 of us went. I think 4 of us went out first, and then like a couple of days later, a few more turned up. And then for the second week, there was like 15 of us. And we had like a floor of one of the hotels just opposite the fountain, right on the corner of the West End at the bottom there. I forget what it was called. But we had a lot of pills with us, and some of them were them ones that were a bit fucking mad. I think they were Christmas trees or something. They were a fucking bit mad. They were a bit trippy, and people they weren't like pills that we knew. And I think I got a bit excited on them, and I think I upset a lot of people. Just constant banter and just non-stop. And our friendship group changed. A couple of people went home early, just couldn't handle it.
Really?
I think a lot of people, when they're getting off their head in the UK, going raving, and they're doing the pills and they're doing powder and things like that. You go to Ibiza, as I did, with this fucking Mecca mindset, and then you realise when you've done a night that it's fucking 40 degrees the next day, and you're probably dehydrated, and you're trying to get your head around, you haven't had any sleep, and it's fucking such a difficult thing to wrap your head around. And you just see lots of English people that have been burnt to death, falling off motorbikes, just wandering around, kind of trying to put it back together. But yeah, we went back that year. I came home after that 2-week holiday. Friendship group had kind of changed. I was determined. I went back again for another week, and I think I managed to get a flight for the August. It was the July when we went first. I managed to get back for a week in August. Didn't have a hotel or anything. Me and one of my mates, we just went and just ended up staying wherever and just wanting to listen to music and dance and dance and dance and dance. I loved dancing back then. I loved it.
I did that once actually with Lime. We went over and we didn't have anywhere to stay for the first few days. We just on a bit of a mad one, and we just went and just ended up meeting with people and staying here and staying there. It's one of the best times we've ever had. One of the best weeks we've ever had away. So much fun. Just totally sort of random. It was great.
So as the years have progressed then, and like I say, you get into the trance years, end of the 90s, going into 2000, you're in Ibiza a lot, you're playing all sorts of different music, the scene changes a lot, culture changes a lot, technology changes a lot. How's that affected you in your industry, the way technology's changed and the way we access music, the way we value music even?
Yeah, I sort of embraced it really. So by 2003, I started playing CDs. And I remember that. I think one of the first places I did that was Paradise actually. I remember going over there in the summer, and the thing with CDs was I could record all my tunes and then start chopping them up at home and start editing them and stuff and actually remastering. There was always a few tunes that were a little bit of a low pressing or whatever that on some systems it just didn't quite cut it. So I managed to I could then record them and put them onto a CD and master everything, get everything nice and loud and EQ'd a bit more, and then chop out all the boring bits, which I ended up doing with tons and tons of my music. So I embraced the whole CD thing, the whole digital thing. Eventually, I got a controller in 2011 and moved over to Tractor, which was a huge move. Really big move, but again, just sort of embracing the new technology. It just meant I could do a lot more stuff creatively and live while I was DJing. And then over the past few years, I've moved from that to USB with Rekordbox, which is another better step for me as well. I'm absolutely loving the technology at the moment, what you can do with stuff. It just really, really works for me. I can add cue points and loops and do all this stuff with the tracks.
So the argument for a long time.
I'm not one of these ones who's like, no, it's got to be vinyl.
Yeah.
No, I'm the opposite of that.
Well, for a little while, that argument was, the skill and the art of mixing vinyl got lost in, DJing through, like say, CDs on the CDJs. But then, as you move into Tractor and as you start using these programs and, like you say, the ability to be on the fly and creating loops and doing things, so it's almost like it's gone back round to it's even more of a live situation now in the way that you can start triggering, playing along in on the move.
It's actually more time consuming. I spend hours downloading my tunes and then reading them, putting cue points on every single tune that I'll play. Making sure they're mastered properly and tagged and artwork and stuff. I'll spend a lot more time in prep, I think, and then making playlists, going through everything, practicing and stuff. And my shows, I'm doing a couple of shows every week now, and they would sound very, very different if I was playing off vinyl. Very different, and for me, they wouldn't sound as good.
Right, got you.
It's not hard. It's not if you've been mixing for 30 odd years, it's not hard to mix, but it's limited. I always say with vinyl, you can put the needle on the record and it's pretty much there until you take it off. You can't change anything, unless you're doing some weird tricks or, you might say, well, you can scratch or whatever. But in general, you can't. It's on, and then you take it off at the point where you want to. But with digital, put as many, you put up to 8 cue points on and flick to 8 different places if you want. If you got it in quantize, it's going to stay in time. Stuff, you can loop some of the stuff you can do with looping. I mean, I'm just probably touching the surface on what you can actually do, even with what I do. I'm not really a showman anyway. I don't really care what it looks like. To me, I don't care whether anyone can see me or whatever. It's just what comes out the speakers. And as long as I can see people dancing and smiling and enjoying it, I'm happy.
As we sit here today, then, obviously, as you alluded to, things have had to change. We live in a mad time. I don't want to get too bogged down in this COVID chat, but obviously the world has changed, and you have been you're super active, like you say, doing shows and putting stuff out, So how have you found that? And already by listening to what you're saying about going through the technology, I'm sure you've adapted and pivoted and made the most of it, because you certainly seem super busy. How's it been?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never done my own live stream like that before at all on Facebook or anything. I've done it a couple of times at radio stations or whatever, where they've had a camera. But yeah, so I had to get used to. I had to get myself set up back in March, which was a bit of a problem. A few mistakes and stuff. But yeah, I thought, well, if I'm not going to do that, what am I going to do? And I know we only thought it was going to be a few weeks or a month until we were back to normal at the time, which seems quite mental now. But I just thought, I'm not going to sit back and just let the world go by. No way. So I just thought, right, I've got to do this. I just stuck with doing streams for the people that I knew, people that I was connected with, and just with the people that I wanted to. I didn't just sort of take anything on. I had loads and loads of requests. I didn't want to use all my energy up just willy-nilly, but I just, stuck with people like your Moon Dance and some people that I knew, and some of the brands that really sort of gel with what I'm doing and with what I'm doing moving forward. A lot of the more houseier stuff. And it seems to have worked really well. I think we had like 7,000 people on the first Moon Dance stream, which was mental. It's like 15, probably 15, 20,000 people, maybe more. Yeah,
because you say that's measuring devices, isn't it? When I was listening today earlier, I was listening to the 25th. Is it the 25th anniversary, I think, your Moon Dance?
The Moon Dance thing, yeah.
You're only in fucking 2 tracks, and you're like, fucking hell, 2.5 thousand, and then it's 5,000. I'm thinking, fucking, that must be mad. Like, I mean, that's a little podcast in its infancy, and it's always mad to think, fucking hell, people are like watching this now. It's really strange. For you, obviously, having that physical history, having it in front of you, and then adapting. And I like, again, it comes back to that positive mindset that you exhibit on Instagram and having spoken to you tonight, open-minded, ready to change, ready to move with the time, ready to do the work, take the responsibility. I wanted to ask you, what books have you read along the way, or what documentaries did you see, or what things inspired you? What little...
Yeah, tons. I do loads of books now. I basically changed around from listening to music whilst travelling to then listening to books. And the story is, I'll tell you what I did. I gave up smoking in 2013, January 2013. I think it must have been actually January the 2nd, I think it was. I think it was a New Year's Day thing, and I thought, no, I'm not doing New Year's Day. I'll be fucked. I'll do the day after. And I did, and I thought, I've got to do something to help me. So I got the Alan Carr audiobook, and I'd never done an audiobook before. I think I did the cassette, actually, many years ago, like back in the 90s, and it was really good, and it worked for a couple of years, and I started smoking again. But anyway, so I did this audiobook, gave up smoking. I did actually start, moving forward, I did actually start again 6 months later, but I actually really enjoyed listening to this audiobook, and it just, I don't know, just sort of struck a nerve, or hit something, and made me think, actually, I wouldn't mind doing listening to another book. And I think I went to Australia, it was. Excuse me. I think I went to Australia a couple of weeks after, and I got myself a couple of audiobooks, and it was just sort of personal development stuff. and it just really, really sort of struck a note. And from that point, I just saturated myself, just soaked myself in audio books. Done quite a few. You read a few books as well, but even things like Think and Grow Rich and stuff like that. Sort of real classics. Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics. Massive, makes a massive change. Done a lot of stuff, a lot of the Bob Proctor material. Followed him for years and years. Still love what he does. I think he's like 86 or 87 now, but he's still teaching. And then some spiritual stuff. I'm certainly not religious or anything like that, but spiritual side of things.
Yeah, that comes through. That comes through here. You know, that I love that. That comes through. I like that.
Yeah, like Eckhart Tolle and even Wayne Dyer, people like that. I mean, I've done tons and tons and tons of stuff. Lots of business stuff as well. And Dr. DeMartini over the last few years. He's a really, really, really clever geezer. But he's done a couple of books all around values. One of them's called The Values Factor. And for me, it's an absolute game changer. If you can understand what your values are in life, everything you do revolves around that. So if you find that you're not doing, you want to do something, but you're just not doing it, which most humans do. You want to lose weight, or you want to do this, or you want to get some more money, or you want to sort of change. If you're not aligned with your values, you're just not gonna do it. You can't make yourself do it. So the idea is you've got to get your values in order. Once you've got your values in order, you'll always get done what you want to do, and generally be much, much happier with what you're doing. It's a very, very sort of brief way of sort of saying it, but
you know, I've had a similar experience, you know, like all of a sudden from being in bands and whether I'm listening to my own demos and we're working on music, or I'm listening to the records that were inspiring me at the time, or whatever it is, to all of a sudden, for me, it was podcasts before audiobooks. So then 2009, 10, somewhere around there, I started listening to podcasts, and like all of a sudden I couldn't drive anywhere without just like learning, just listening to conversations, fucking hearing it, fascinating stories from people I'd never even heard of that had life experiences that were just so rewarding. And then Audible comes along and you start picking up books, and I read books as well. I'm not a great reader. I could probably read 4 or 5 a year, something like that. But then audiobooks,
Well, the same as me, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're in the car, so much traveling, driving around. It's just perfect time. And they say, don't they, there's kind of Zen state when you're driving as well. You're in that kind of flow state because it's automatic, because you're
there's nothing else to really do, so you really, really concentrate on it. Yeah, but for me, so doing so much driving and all my own driving as well. So I might go to, say, Manchester for the night and come back. That's like a good 6 hours in the motor. That could be a book in a night. So I can either listen to the same old music for 6 hours, or get on the phone hands-free, or I could do a whole book on, say, I don't know, something really, really useful, so it's going to teach me something valuable. But the thing is, the stuff I've been learning, it resonates with my values, I suppose. So it's enjoyable. If it didn't, I wouldn't enjoy it and I wouldn't do it.
Of course, and it helps you to, like you say, shuffle those values into order, and then you start to see the rewards kind of exponentially through your life, don't you? I don't know, have you got kids?
Yeah.
You got kids, Matt?
Yeah.
So you got a couple of kids, and what are they? How old are they?
Charlie's 26. He's 26, and Alfie's 17. And then my stepson's 23. He lives here with us. Yeah. Okay,
so what kind of a dad are you?
Probably a bit of a pushover, really. I've not lived with both of my kids for that long. Charlie was 2 when I split up with her mum, and then Alfie was only 3, I think, as well. No, but we do see each other. Very, very, very close with Charlie. I try and keep as close to Alfie as I can. He's a teenager, so we still chat with each other and see each other now and again, but I don't push him too hard. And then Art, who's Rachel's boy, he lives with us. Yeah, but they'll get it off me. They'll get the old personal development stuff. What you want to do is.
I was going to say, because for me, like having my kids, I mean, I've got young kids. I've got a stepdaughter who's 20, and I was 20 when she was 1 when I met her, and I learnt a lot. Looking back now, I learnt a hell of a lot from her. But having mine 5, 6, and 3 now, so much of these podcasts or these audio books where I've learnt about myself and kind of maybe align those values or recognise myself a bit. Yeah, I definitely feel that go out into them. Definitely.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, Charlie's. It's weird actually. It takes time. So as soon as I started learning some sort of new stuff and that was one of the first things I wanted to do, is to put it down to, pass it on to the kids. And it's not easy and it's not quick, and you think, not going to get it, really not going to get it. But I've noticed with my daughter, sort of a few years later now, she's really sort of grasping stuff, really grasping it, and especially the business stuff that I've learned as well. She's becoming quite a good businesswoman. Not that I'm saying I'm a good businessman, but I can see stuff that she's using, sort of to real good effect. Yeah, but a lot of the classics, things like Earl Nightingale stuff and that, it's from the 50s and 60s, but it's so good to have as a base for the way you think and stuff. One of the biggest ones are Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics, all about self-image. I think it sold about 10 million copies. It was written in 1960. It was an old book. Other people I follow at the moment, I haven't followed him for a while actually, but I did for a couple of years, more on the business side of things. He's Rob Moore. He's a property businessman. He's very good with social media and stuff. Check out Rob Moore on Facebook. And the other thing I did was I did a couple of Landmark courses. I don't know if you've heard of Landmark. It was originally an American company, but they do a lot of they do tons and tons of personal development courses in all different sort of niches and stuff. They do a thing called the Forum. And I did the Forum. What's it called? The Forum Extra, or the advanced Landmark Advanced, and then we did an integrity seminar, which is like a 10-week seminar, and that just taught me total game changer. You realise if you realise that everything, it's really, really simple, but if you realise that everything occurs to everyone differently, no one thing that occurs to anyone the same, and you understand that, okay, they're not agreeing, but they're seeing it from a different point of view. They're never going to see it the same way as you do. Then it just changes everything. You can just
release a lot of your own.
You can just you can understand. You can think, okay, well, they don't see that the same as me. So whereas you'll get some people that just argue. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. But it's like, well, changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, that's a lovely way to bring it home. Positive vibes, and I'll make a note of a couple of them books. Was it
Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and there's a few different editions of it. Yeah. It's quite a long one, but it's an audio book as well. And The Values Factor by John D. Martini. Another really, really good one. They're both very long books, very, very deep. But they're game changers, absolute game changers for business, for life, for everything.
Well, they're going to end up on this shelf, and I will get through them. So I appreciate that, Matt.
I'm going to check up on you.
You've been a star, mate. I really appreciate your time. It's been a nice time for me to get to speak to somebody like you. Like I say, Michael Jackson left my wall, Slipmatt and crew entered, and I get to speak to you all this time later, and to know that you maintain that positive energy, or to even know that positive energy was your personality that was coming through the music, to know that you're still doing it, you're still moving with the times, still offering those good vibes to people, busy as ever. Listen, thank you so much, and let's hope that we get back to some kind of freedom.
We will soon. We will soon.
Yeah, and big love from the Chew the Chat podcast and the Chew the Chat listeners and viewers, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Nice one, brother. Take care.